It was almost midnight, and the silence in my apartment felt like a weight pressing down on me. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful but oppressive, filling every corner of the room with an uneasy stillness. I sat cross-legged on my bed, the faint glow of my phone screen the only light in the otherwise pitch-black room. I had been scrolling aimlessly for hours, mindlessly flipping through social media, trying to stave off the loneliness that had crept in ever since Daniel and I broke up. But even the endless stream of photos and videos couldn't fill the void. My thumb hovered over the screen, ready to lock the phone and call it a night, when it buzzed softly in my hand. The vibration startled me, the sound cutting sharply through the quiet. At first I thought it was just another spam notification. I glanced down. A message from an unknown number. "I see you." The words were so simple, yet they carried a chill that crept into my chest. For a moment I just stared at the screen, trying to process. A prank, I thought. It had to be. Someone bored, someone random, or maybe a wrong number. I shook my head, exhaling a nervous laugh, and locked the phone. It wasn't worth overthinking. People did this kind of thing all the time. I told myself it was nothing, yet the unease lingered. The words repeated in my mind like an echo, digging into me as though they carried weight I couldn't explain. I shifted under the covers, pulling them up to my chin, willing myself to forget about it. But just as my body began to relax, the phone buzzed again, louder this time. The sound made my stomach twist, and when I saw the notification, a wave of dread rolled over me. "I'm closer than you think." I sat up straight, gripping the phone tightly. My heart began to pound, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. Whoever this was, it wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe it was Daniel? Some cruel joke to get back at me? I quickly dismissed the idea. This wasn't his style. He was many things, but spiteful wasn't one of them. I hesitated for a moment, then typed a reply with trembling fingers. "Who is this? Stop texting me." I pressed send and waited. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours, my pulse loud in my ears. I told myself they wouldn't respond, that it was over, but deep down, I knew better. When the reply came, my stomach dropped. "Why don't you check the window?" My eyes darted toward the blinds. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, the kind of place where you didn't worry about what was outside because it felt too high to reach. Still, the words sent a jolt of fear through me. I tried to reason with myself. There was no way anyone could see me. I had the blinds down, the lights off. They couldn't know. But the message, it was so deliberate, so specific. With a deep breath, I slid out of bed and moved toward the window. My bare feet made the old wooden floor creak, and the sound seemed deafening in the silence. My hand hovered over the blinds, my body tense. Slowly, I lifted one corner and peeked outside. The street below was empty, just the faint orange glow of a single streetlight casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. There was no one there, nothing unusual. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. My phone buzzed again. "Don't worry, you won't see me." I stumbled back from the window, nearly tripping over the edge of the bed. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow. My mind raced. Was someone watching me? How? Was this some sort of sick joke? My hands shook as I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. Then came another message. "It's just you and me tonight. Don't bother calling for help." My throat tightened. I immediately tried to call someone, anyone, but my phone froze. The screen glitched, flickering before it went completely black. I pressed the power button over and over, but nothing happened. I cursed under my breath and bolted for the kitchen. I had an old landline there, a relic from when I first moved in. My fingers fumbled with the receiver as I dialed 911. The line connected, but instead of the reassuring voice of a dispatcher, I was met with static. Thick, grating static, punctuated by faint whispers. I slammed the phone down, my hands trembling so violently that I almost knocked it off the counter. And then I heard it. A knock at the door. It was soft at first, barely audible, but in the suffocating quiet of the apartment, it sounded like a gunshot. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. No one should have been here. No one could be here. The knock came again, louder this time. I crept toward the door, every step feeling heavier than the last. My hand hovered over the doorknob, but I stopped. My apartment didn't have a peephole. I couldn't see who was out there. My phone buzzed again, and the vibration in my hand felt like an electric shock. I glanced down, dread pooling in my stomach. "Aren't you going to let me in?" I dropped the phone as if it had burned me. My pulse roared in my ears as I stumbled back from the door. My eyes darted around the room, searching for anything I could use to defend myself. My gaze landed on a butcher knife sitting on the kitchen counter. I started to move toward it, but the knock came again, this time followed by something worse. Breathing, soft, slow breathing, coming from the other side of the door. The sound sent ice through my veins, and then a voice, low and distorted, barely above a whisper. "Why are you running, Anna?" I choked back a scream. They knew my name. My vision blurred with panic as I backed into the wall, my body trembling uncontrollably. The phone buzzed once more. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a photo. My fingers hesitated, but some terrible curiosity forced me to open it. It was me, sitting on my bed, taken just moments ago. I dropped the phone, my knees buckling as the realization hit me. Whoever this was, they were already inside. Then came the final message. "I'm already inside." The room spun as those final words flashed in my mind. "I'm already inside." I stood there, back pressed against the cold wall, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The darkness around me seemed to thicken, suffocating, alive. I glanced at the door again, as though expecting it to burst open at any second. But there was nothing. No more knocks, no more breathing. Just silence, heavier and more menacing than before. I needed to think, to move, to do something. My eyes darted toward the kitchen again, the butcher knife still glinting faintly in the dim light filtering through the blinds. I forced myself to step away from the wall, my legs shaking so badly that I nearly collapsed. Every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt like a scream in the silence. The knife was cold and heavy in my hand, but it offered little comfort. My mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts. They're lying. No one's here. This is some kind of elaborate trick. But how could they have taken that photo? How could they know where I was? The logical part of my brain screamed at me to leave the apartment, to run and never look back. But every shadow felt like it was hiding something, every corner a trap waiting to spring. And worse, there was no guarantee that whatever or whoever was doing this wasn't out there too. I gripped the knife tighter and forced myself to take a step toward the hallway. I needed to check, to make sure I was alone. "Hello?" I called out, hating the way my voice wavered. The sound echoed faintly, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. No response. My heart thudded so loudly that I thought it might drown out anything else. I moved cautiously, checking the small living room first. The furniture sat in its usual disarray, nothing out of place, nothing unusual. But the unease didn't lift. If anything, it grew heavier. The air felt colder here, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The kitchen was next. Empty. My trembling hand gripped the knife so tightly that my knuckles ached. Then, the bathroom. I hesitated at the doorway, my gut screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't leave it unchecked. My hand reached out slowly, gripping the edge of the door, and I pushed it open. The bathroom was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamp outside the frosted window. The shower curtain was drawn, a blank wall of white that suddenly seemed sinister. My breathing grew ragged as I stepped forward, my pulse hammering so loudly that it felt like it was vibrating through my entire body. With one quick motion, I yanked the curtain aside, the metal rings screeching against the rod. The tub was empty. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. The sound of my phone buzzing from the bedroom shattered the fragile calm. I spun around, my blood turning to ice. It was the same number. It had to be. My feet felt like lead as I moved back toward the bedroom, the knife trembling in my grip. The phone was still on the floor where I'd dropped it, the screen glowing faintly in the darkness. I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't want to see what it said, but I couldn't ignore it. Not now. I crouched down, hesitating before finally reaching out and unlocking the screen. The message was simple. Check the closet. A shiver ran through me so violently that I thought I might drop the phone again. My closet. It was in the bedroom, directly opposite the bed. A narrow sliding door with a full-length mirror that reflected the room behind me. I turned slowly, the knife held out in front of me like it could actually protect me from whatever was happening. The closet loomed in the darkness, the mirrored surface reflecting the faint outline of the room. I took a step closer, my pulse roaring in my ears. My reflection looked wrong somehow, distorted by the dim light and my own fear. I stopped just short of the door, every instinct screaming at me not to open it. The phone buzzed again, and this time the message was a single word. Now. With a shaking hand, I reached out and slid the closet door open. Empty. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave, but it was immediately followed by confusion. Why would they send me here? What was the point? I scanned the closet, my eyes darting over the neatly hung clothes and the stack of boxes on the floor. There was nothing out of place, but then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The boxes were slightly shifted, as though they'd been moved recently. My heart sank as I crouched down, my hands trembling as I reached out to lift the top box. The smell hit me first, a sickly metallic tang that made my stomach churn. I pulled the box away, revealing a dark stain on the wooden floor beneath it. Blood. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. This wasn't possible. I hadn't put the boxes there. I hadn't. The phone buzzed again, and this time I couldn't bring myself to pick it up. The sound alone was enough to send fresh waves of panic crashing over me. And then I heard it. A faint creak coming from behind me. I spun around, the knife raised, my eyes scanning the room. The mirrored closet door was still open, and for a brief moment I thought I saw someone, move in the reflection. A shadow, quick and fleeting, disappearing into the darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. No answer. The phone buzzed again, and this time I couldn't resist. I grabbed it, my hands trembling so violently that I almost dropped it. The message was a photo. It was me, standing in the room, holding the knife. But the photo wasn't taken from the angle of the mirror. It was taken from directly behind me. I whipped around, the knife slashing through the empty air. Nothing. No one. But the oppressive feeling of being watched grew stronger, more suffocating. The phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a message. It was a call. The screen displayed "Unknown Caller," and my thumb hovered over the answer button. Against every instinct, I pressed it. I didn't say anything, and for a moment there was only silence on the other end. Then, a low, distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "You can't run from me, Anna." The line went dead. My mind spiraled as I backed into the corner of the room, clutching the knife like it was a lifeline. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to escape. And then, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and absolute. My breathing came in short, panicked gasps as I pressed myself against the wall, the knife trembling in my hand. And then, from somewhere in the darkness, I heard the sound of footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, and getting closer. The darkness was absolute, a void that swallowed everything: sight, sound, and any sense of safety I might have clung to. The footsteps continued, steady and deliberate, echoing in a way that didn't make sense in my small apartment. Each step sent a jolt of panic through me, my heart hammering so loudly I was certain it would give me away. I pressed my back against the wall, gripping the knife so tightly that my fingers ached. My breathing was shallow, ragged, but I couldn't stop it. I couldn't control the way the fear had completely overtaken me. "Anna!" The distorted voice called out from the darkness, closer now. It sounded wrong, inhuman, like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. "Why do you keep hiding? You know I'll find you." I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat felt like it was closing up. My survival instincts kicked in, urging me to move, to do something, but I felt frozen in place. Then I remembered the kitchen, the back door. If I could just get there, I could run, get outside, and maybe find someone, anyone, to help. I took a cautious step forward, my bare feet silent on the cold floor. The footsteps paused, as if the intruder was listening, waiting for me to make my move. The silence stretched, unbearable, and then I heard it. A faint chuckle, low and guttural. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, forcing myself to stay focused. Another step, and another. The knife felt heavier with every inch I moved, my grip slippery with sweat. The kitchen was just a few feet away now. If I could make it there, if I could just... Something brushed against my arm. I screamed, slashing wildly with the knife, but I hit nothing but air. My balance faltered, and I stumbled, catching myself against the counter. My mind raced, desperate to process what had just happened. I hadn't imagined it. Something had touched me. Something cold and damp, like a corpse's hand. The chuckle returned, louder this time, followed by a voice so close it felt like it was whispering directly into my ear. "You can't escape, Anna. You're mine now." I spun around, knife raised, but the room was empty. My breathing was erratic, the walls closing in on me. I had to get out, now. I bolted for the back door, slamming into it with enough force to rattle the frame. My hands fumbled with the lock, but it wouldn't budge. It was stuck, jammed as if someone, or something, was holding it shut. Leaving so soon? The voice taunted, this time from behind me. I turned slowly, tears streaming down my face, the knife shaking in my hand. The shadows in the room seemed to shift and writhe, coalescing into a form that was almost human but not quite. Its face was obscured, a swirling void where features should have been, but its eyes, or what passed for them, glowed faintly, malevolent and hungry. "What do you want?" I choked out, my voice barely above a whisper. It didn't respond, only tilted its head as if studying me. Then, it stepped forward, its movements impossibly fluid, like smoke taking shape. I swung the knife wildly, desperate to keep it at bay, but it didn't flinch. Instead, it laughed, a sound that seemed to vibrate through my very bones. "Fighting only makes it more fun," it said, its voice dripping with malice. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The room seemed to stretch and shift, the walls warping and closing in around me. I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. And then, just as it reached for me, something changed. The phone on the floor lit up, its screen glowing with an incoming call. The light was weak, but in the suffocating blackness, it was like a beacon. The entity froze, its gaze snapping toward the phone. For a brief moment, it looked almost afraid. I didn't hesitate. I dove for the phone, grabbing it with both hands, and answered the call. "Anna, listen to me," a man's voice said urgently. It was calm, steady, and completely human. "You need to break the connection. It's feeding on your fear." What are you talking about?" I stammered, my eyes darting back to the entity. It was writhing now, its form flickering like a bad signal, but it didn't retreat. "You brought it here," the voice continued. "The texts, the photos, it's how it gets inside. You need to destroy the phone." Destroy the phone? It sounded insane, but nothing about this night made sense. The entity let out a guttural roar, its form solidifying again as it lunged toward me. I didn't think. I acted. With all the strength I could muster, I threw the phone to the ground and brought the knife down on it. The screen shattered, sparks flying as the device broke apart. The effect was immediate. The entity let out a scream that was more animal than human, its form collapsing into itself like smoke sucked into a vacuum. The room seemed to ripple, the oppressive darkness lifting as the creature disappeared. And then, silence. I collapsed to the floor, the knife slipping from my hand as sobs racked my body. The apartment was still and quiet once more, the only sound my ragged breathing. But the relief was fleeting. As I sat there, staring at the shattered remains of the phone, a terrible thought crept into my mind. What if it wasn't gone? What if breaking the phone hadn't destroyed it, but only freed it? The faint sound of a buzz broke the silence, and my heart stopped. I turned slowly, my blood running cold as I saw the glow of a new phone on the counter, one I didn't own. The screen lit up, displaying a single message. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" The light flickered, then went out, plunging the room into darkness once more.